Continue this very important series that we started at the beginning of January. We're talking about a sustainable foundation for good health in 2026. And I get to welcome Wendy Christien, health coach and wellness practitioner from Integrated Health Solution. Morning, Wendy. Thursday again.
Good morning, Brad. Yes, they come around as quickly as we can blink our eyes.
I know we'll probably wrap up the series today or next week, and then it'll be the end of January. I can't get over that, how quickly all of these things go. And we can't only get excited about doing all of these things suddenly. You know, Wendy, it's January. We got to get all of this stuff sorted out. And then I think it's important for us to continue talking about these things because it peters out a little bit by February, and then by March, we're kind of back to the things we were doing in 2025.
Exactly. I think we all do start off with good intentions, and intentions are helpful, but we have to turn those intentions into something that is sustainable and something that can become a new habit. So, yeah, I think it is important to just remind ourselves continuously. It's not just a run in January and then we don't do anything for the rest of the year.
I was going to ask you what the secret is to continuing this, and I think you touched on it there in what you previously said about habits.
Yes. So your habits are what's going to get you through, and you have to make consistent little changes to develop a habit. And a habit can be a good habit or a bad habit. We obviously want to develop the better habits, but it takes time. It takes consistency. It takes little efforts, little steps every day to be able to keep us going along that line, and to eventually, but it then becomes part of our normal, part of our day.
Yeah, because I think motivation is all important, but after what you've just said, if I understand correctly, like motivation is like rah, 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 come on, let's go, but that fades, and it's that discipline, right? Those habits that you've just said, that's what's going to carry us through.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the motivation is going to be short-lived because it's usually fueled by emotion. Whether it's a good emotion or a bad emotion, but it's usually an emotion that fuels that. But then when the emotion fades, can we continue with the habits that we've put in place? So it's use the emotion to drive the motivation, but then to keep it going, you have to start bringing that discipline in.
Yeah, we hear you. So now we need to talk about sleep. We've touched on food, we've touched on exercise, and I get a feeling this is something that we sometimes neglect. We feel, I must work hard and do all of these things. Oh, and then I'll sleep when I get a chance. Would it be true to say that we don't prioritize sleep as much as we should?
I think that's very true. I think we tend to skimp on our sleep, and we do other things rather than sleep. And then it catches up with us, and then we try, and put things in place to counteract the fact that we haven't slept well. Then we drink too much coffee, or we do other unhealthy behaviors that try and keep us awake rather than actually sleeping and resting our bodies as we need to.
So why is sleep then so important?
So it's very important for our hormonal balance. It helps for our mood, our cognitive function, so the ability to be able to think and focus and concentrate, to interact with your friends and in other relationships. It's very important for our weight. It plays a huge role in our weight management. If we're not sleeping enough, it disrupts our blood sugar balance, and then that can also affect our weight. And it's very good to help bring down inflammation in the body. And our brains detoxify at night while we're sleeping. If we're not getting that sleep, the brain isn't able to clear out, all the toxins that build up. It can't organize our thoughts well. And then we are at much higher risk for cognitive disorders, the decline in memory, dementia, Alzheimer's, those kind of things.
We say self-care. It's a bit of a catchphrase at the moment, self-care. Would you say sleeping well, the correct number of hours every night, and prioritizing sleep is part of self-care?
Absolutely, yes. It's optimal for self-care, and I think it is one of the most vital parts of self-care.
So how many hours, I guess this is now what people are wondering, okay, we know sleep is important, so I can get away with like 4 or 5 hours. How much time do we really need to be fast asleep and hopefully getting into deep sleep?
So I think it certainly does vary for people, and I think excuse me, people can they can think that they can get away with less sleep, so they convince themselves that they're actually doing okay. But what we really need for our bodies is anywhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. So some people need a little bit more, some people a little bit less. But your minimum would be around 7 hours.
Um, you were talking about habits. I suppose working a routine is important. Would it benefit us if we say, okay, this is my bedtime? Because we all need to sort of wake up we've got our alarm set, and then it's when we go to bed that we seem to, that changes. So routine here is important, just as we would for our children. We need to be doing it as well for ourselves as adults.
Yes, a routine is very beneficial, and just keeping that regular sleep time. So the night times are probably where we do the worst. But then on weekends you might want to sleep in, and then you'll end up sleeping, a few hours
Mm.
past what you would normally sleep, and that's also not good. So we ideally want to keep our sleep and our wake time more or less the same consistently,
Yeah.
weekdays and weekends.
Yeah. And is there anything else that we can do that can help us to fall asleep easier, to be able to, we work in that routine, but to ensure that when we settle in, that we really do get a good night's sleep?
Yeah, well, we want to limit our exposure to screens, to scrolling through the internet and the social media and all of that, because
Mm-hmm.
that can be overstimulatory. So anything that stimulates our brains too much at nighttime is also not a good thing, because then your stress hormones are being activated and you're not going to go into that rest phase. So it'll be more difficult to fall asleep, more difficult to switch off, and more difficult to go into deep sleep.
Mm.
So yeah, nighttime, there should be a winding down routine. So as part of the routine, have some time where you're just, still, that the lights are lower, that you're not scrolling and adding more blue light to your surroundings, because then that's stimulating the pineal gland and it blocks your melatonin production.
Yeah, I like that. So there we go. That's what we're laying down for you as something very important into this year, is get into that sleep routine, and you've heard all the reasons why. Moving on to water as a vital one as well. Ooh, we love our coffee and we love our tea, and water sometimes an afterthought. I think you're going to set us straight this morning, Wendy.
Yes, I do find that many people struggle to drink water. It's a question that I ask every day to several people, and not everybody finds drinking water easy. So I think if you're not a great water drinker, if you can start small and build that up until you can be drinking water regularly, your body will stop asking for it if you don't give it to, if you don't give your body water, it eventually starts ignoring the signal. And then you might feel hungry, or you might feel like you need more coffee, or you might need something else, but your body's still telling you it's thirsty,
Hmm.
but it can show up in other ways.
Hmm.
But if you can start by drinking a glass of water every hour or so, until you're getting up to your 8 glasses of water, 6 to 8 glasses, depending on your size and um, uh, gender and all of those kind of things. But you're wanting between 6 and 8 glasses of water a day, and that's the way that you're going to be able to do it.
So the big question is, do coffee and tea count towards those 6 to 8 glasses?
No, they don't. They actually dehydrate your body more. So I'm talking regular tea, regular coffee, because they're very acidic. If you're drinking black herbal teas, those do count as water. But yeah, water or herbal teas are the only things that really count. And then maybe your fruits and vegetables that are full of water. Those can also count as water. But yeah, there's not really much that replaces pure water.
Yeah, and we need to increase our water intake. Do we then need to also look at other things that we like to drink? Fruit juices, sugary sodas, and mix on cordials and those kind of things. Do we need to bring those levels down as we bring the water levels up?
Absolutely, yes, because those are also acidic. They're also going to disrupt your blood sugar because they're often full of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not full of sugar, they might be full of sweeteners, and that's also not ideal. So we do want to be limiting the amount of sodas and sugary drinks and coffees and teas and those kind of things that we are consuming in the day. If you look at those at the end of the day, your calorie intake could be doubled
Mm.
just by the drinks that you're consuming.
Yeah, and for those who enjoy a glass of alcohol, we're not promoting that, but that's certainly part of some people's lifestyle. We need to limit those, I'm guessing, as well, because that's also going to have a negative effect on, you've mentioned calories, and then also on being hydrated.
Yes, yes. So they definitely will influence your hydration. Alcohol, along with caffeine, will also dehydrate your body.
Mm,
So, you know, we're talking about moderation here. If you're drinking coffee or tea or alcohol in moderation, then that's not going to be too much of an issue with your body. But if that becomes your primary source of drinking something, it's not hydrating.
mm.
It can be more dehydrating for your body.
Yeah, and just as we finish, for those saying, "Oh, I want to do the 6 to 8, but the plain water is a little boring," can I add something in there? What can you add that's okay, just to maybe add a touch of flavor into what some people find a little bit bland and boring?
Yes, so there's lots of things that you can infuse your water with. You can add fresh fruits or slices of cucumber, mint leaves, lemon, grapefruit,
Mm,
any of the citrusy fruits you can add into water, and it infuses the water. I've even seen that you can get a water bottle that you put the fruit or whatever into a section so that you're not so that the chunks and the chunks are filtered out and you just get the infusion flavor in the water, which
mm.
is really nice. Otherwise you can just pop it all in a jug and you can just use one of those. Some of the jugs have like a lid on with a little hole in it
Yes.
to stop all the fruits coming up, but no problem if you eat those fruits. If they do pop into your glass and you consume them as well, that'll also be good for you to have.
And it looks nice.
It does look
Yes.
nice. Yes. It looks nice, tastes nice, and it's very refreshing.
Yeah, and it's good for you, and that's what we're aiming for. Still going to be spending some time together on this next week as we talk around managing stress, checkups, and then also just a little bit of kindness to yourself. And that's going to be a good conversation to have next week as we continue the Sustainable Foundations for Good Health in 2026. Massive thanks to you, Dr. Wendy Christien, health coach and wellness practitioner at Integrated Health Solution. Here's to another great week, and thanks so much for sewing into our lives this morning.
Pleasure, Brad. Have a great week.